Alright guys, thanks for your patience here. I do apologize for the delay in getting up and running here. I had some issues with my streaming software, but all is good now. Alright, so first I want to talk about some new information that came out this week from HR Expo, or High Res's Expo, with Smite and Paladins as well as Realm Royale. We are getting cross-platform play for PC, Xbox, and Switch. The big change here is, of course, integrating the PC players into this. Now, we don't know for sure yet if that's also going to allow us to link and merge accounts. As you probably know if you've watched any of my other videos, my Xbox account is much higher than my PC account, just because that's where I started. I'm still in the midst of leveling up my PC account, but for the effects for today to go through what we're going to go through, I am going to use my PC account. I can still go in and give you a good walkthrough on everything, but hopefully we will get that merging coming soon. Unfortunately, PlayStation 4 is still not in the mix for the cross-platform, but fingers crossed that that will be coming soon. Just got to keep an eye out. Alright, so let's get started here. Alright, so with our healers breakdown today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each healer that is available currently. I'm going to break down their abilities and what I see as a good play style, or how I would play them and how I would build them. Now, of course, everybody plays the champion differently. You may have some tweaking that you want to do. I do recommend that if you play any style of MOBA or a Battle Royale, to get to know pretty much every character, whether you like them or not, play a few games with them, at least get comfortable with their commands. Just gives you a better knowledge in game, so you have a lot more ability to counter champions and to know what's coming, how to avoid skills, how to stun against things to prevent them from happening or to cancel them. So let's get started here with our first one. Oh, I do recommend, if you don't have it already, to go ahead and do the Champions Pack. What this does is it's only $15 American. This will actually give you all champions that are current as well as all future champions. It's a one-time purchase, and you do get a refund of 315,000 gold, so you can go ahead and level up some of those champions moving forward. Alright, so the first healer that we have here on my list is Furia. She's also the newest healer that is out. Fortunately, my graphics are a little low right now. Definitely looks a lot better if you have graphics up. Didn't want to have any lag or anything for this stream for you guys, so just bear with me on that. Alright, so Furia is a fantastic champion. She's not my main, but I do play her pretty frequently. So what you've got here is her abilities. So her auto attack does decent amount of damage. It's like a shotgun. That's how I think of it, at least. So think of a widespread damage with not as much punch unless they're close by. And then you've got Higher Blade, right? This will increase your attack speed. This is your basic attack, so it increases your attack speed, and does do, I mean, it's a nice amount. It's not as much as a lot of the other auto attacks, and depending on how you build her, I believe her base amount of ammo is 9, so 9 shots before you have to reload. Now your Kindle Soul is your single target heal. Depending, again, there are ways you can buff this in your build with your loadout. We'll go over loadouts here in a moment. This is a decent single target heal. Wings of Wrath is actually a dash back, which shoots out 3 bolts of fire, dealing 200 damage each. Now they will go ahead and seek out the nearest enemy. You can miss with them. It's not a guaranteed hit, but it's a good way to get out of a damaging effect or a damaging area from the enemy team, as well as to do a little bit of damage while you do that, to allow yourself some time to heal. Pyre Strike is as it sits, without any buffs or anything like that, or without taking a specific talent, is a stun that does 400 damage. So it'll stop them in their tracks for about 0.5 seconds and do a decent amount of damage. And this allows your team to jump on. So if you know you need to target a Mave or a Sky or something like that, and you're able to lock them down as well as other healers, that's your best opportunity. Her ultimate, what this does is it actually gives you a crit, basically. It gives you movement speed, and any allies within 150 feet of yourself gain that 30% bonus weapon damage as well as that movement speed buff for 8 seconds. You also become untargetable for 2 seconds in her ult. Let's talk about the talents here. Of course, you start off with Cherish, which increases Kindle Soul, which is your single target heal, up to 25 additional health based on your allies' missing health. So if they're super low, they can give them a good little punch back. And then your next one that you unlock is Celery. Sorry guys. Celerity. This actually increases your Wings of Wrath. So if this is something that you feel you're going to be using a lot of, you may want to take this talent, which you get at level 2. This gives it an additional charge, so it shoots out 4. The next one you'll receive is Solar Blessing. This is the one that I use most of the time. What this does is actually makes your Pyre Strike a heal. This is great for Onslaught and for Siege because it can allow your team, when they have to sit on a point, you can just shoot it straight forward and you can heal a good amount of heat of your team. With that, all they have to do is stand in it. The last one you get is Exterminate. When Pyre Strike hits an enemy, it stops moving until the durations end. So this is a good way to, again, if you're using more of the Pyre Strike as a defensive or an attack in a way to where you want to stun them down, lock someone down completely to be able to wipe them out. Hopefully your team jumps on them when this happens. You're going to want to use Exterminate. Now, of course, you probably want to have a few different builds and a couple of these talents that you're comfortable with, so that way you can adapt based on what the other team has as far as their team comp. So let's talk about builds for her. Now, the one they automatically give you is called Angelic Inferno. And as you can see here, you've got a cooldown reduction for Wings of Wrath, cooldown reduction for Kindle Soul. Successful Wings of Wrath attacks heal you for 150, so you get a return on that. So the damage that you do, you get a return in healing. Burning Oath, which when you heal an ally with Kindle Soul, also heals you over 3 seconds for 315. And then, of course, to increase your ammo by 6. So this isn't a bad one to start with when you're first starting to get to know her. But once you find out which one of your abilities that you rely on the most situationally, you're probably going to want to go ahead and create a couple more. So let's go ahead and create one here, relying on Pyre Strike. Now, like I said, I use it for Solar Blessing, so it's good to have a few cards in for Pyre Strike. You can either increase the stun duration, which even with Solar Blessing, it still does stun if it hits an enemy. But because it stops when it hits an ally to heal, it's not likely that that's going to happen, or that's not the point of it with Solar Blessing. So what I would like to do here is I'm actually going to increase the radius. Okay, I'm going to actually do that by 30%. Then let's take a look here. It's always good to look at these down here as well, because these are just your basic, whereas you have your specific for each ability here. So you've got Pyre Strike, Wings of Wrath, Kindle Soul, and then your overall buffs. So with this here, Wrath Decay is 10% slower, so that's your ultimate. No, I'm sorry. That will be your auto attack. Now with this, I do always personally have the increased maximum health. Every champion has a card that will increase their maximum health, and I usually do it up to 3 ticks. Now with her, because the ammo count is so low, and if you're not going to add ammo, what I'm going to do is actually increase the reload speed, or decrease that reload speed so it's quicker for me. I'm only going to decrease it about 14%. Let's see what else we can get in here. For the single target heal, I usually do have the Light of Dawn, which gives them a shield as well as the heal. Let's go ahead and pop that in here. We're going to go ahead and do 3. And then let's see. Now, if you're going to rely on healing and not so much on doing damage with your abilities and more using them for heals, except for Wings of Wrath, I would recommend taking Inner Fire, because healing an ally with your Kindle Soul, your single target, will restore some ammo to you. But I do like the Burning Oath as well. For this pack though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Burning Oath, and we're going to increase that up to 4. So that way anytime I heal someone with that single target, I'm getting a good amount of health back. And we're just going to go ahead and save and exit. Let's create one more here, more for damage. So with this one, it would be more towards taking Exterminate, that ability, to where your Pyro Strike will actually stop and do damage to them. So I'm actually going to increase that stun duration. I'm also going to reveal it so that my allies can't see them. And I'm going to go ahead and get that cooldown reduction as well for that. And let's see, let's go ahead and increase our ammo, and let's get a little bit more health. So we'll knock that up a bit, get a couple more ammo, we'll knock it down, 2 seconds. This is a pretty even, as you can see, across the board. And this is actually one that I use pretty often. A pretty little loadout there that you can go, and of course when you're in game, once you know what they are, you can quickly choose them situationally depending on what the other team has. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one we have here, which is Genos. Genos is a very popular healer within the game. Of the healers that we have in here, he's towards the bottom for me. I'm not a huge fan of him, but I do know that there are plenty of people that play him very well and have him under lock and key. I'm just not one of those people, but let's go ahead and take a quick look at here. So his auto attacks do 108 damage, but it's a rapid fire, medium range, so pretty quick shooting. And you can stay at a somewhat decent distance to keep yourself safe and behind allies. Astral Mark, what this does is that this is actually your healing. So this is your single target, but it does its cooldown is relatively short. It's only 8 seconds, and that healing does last. It gives them 220 health every second for 10 seconds. So it's a decent little heal. It's one of those ones you can drop and run away. So you can run for cover or something like that and drop it on the tank. Stellar Wind, this is great for if you're being chased, or if you're in a place that you shouldn't be because you chased someone. This will allow you to get out. This is increasing your jump height and your movement speed, and you cannot attack while you're in Stellar Wind. That's the big thing here, but it does allow you, to move quickly. You get a 65% movement boost. If you go to shoot, you do come out of Stellar Wind, so you can cancel it, but it is on a 2-second cooldown, so you can go right back in. Void Grip is a great utility to have. What this does is it actually lifts the enemy into the air, holds them there. It does do some damage. This also allows your team to get a chance to grab or damage that champion fairly quickly, because they can't really retaliate too much. I've been void gripped before, and it gets a little disorienting once you're in the air to try and shoot enemies, especially if that entire team is jumping on you. You're pretty much done. Now, his ultimate is his big thing. His ultimate is a fairly long-ranged ultimate. I wouldn't say across the map, but it's pretty far out there. You also become CC immune while you're doing it. This is something that you can shoot through walls. You can do it from a good distance back to protect yourself, and it has a decent amount of range as far as the area. Now you do want to be careful where you aim it, because if you aim it too low, half of your damage area can be cut off by sinking into the ground, which also makes it a lot easier to avoid. But it does do a whopping 2,400 damage, which for some champions, some of the squishier ones, that's a one-shot kill. And I've had it happen to me before. It's not fun. It can be avoided again, but it's one of those ones, it's a good one to have. As far as his talents here, you start off with Celestial Touch. So this is when you cast your single target heal. They immediately are healed for 10% of their maximum health. So instead of having that slow tick of 220 over 10 seconds, you can give them a massive boost right off the bat. So this is really good if you have dual tanks or a fairly tanky team. You can drop that to them, because the more health they have at maximum, the more health you're going to give them in that immediate touch. Now, of course, the second one that you're going to unlock as you level him up is going to be Binary Star. Star Splitter, which is your auto attack again, this increases the damage for it. So you're going from 108 to 360. And you are firing quicker, so it's every 0.4 seconds versus, slower. 0.4 seconds versus 0.13 seconds. The third one that you will unlock is the power of Cosmium. Again, guys, I don't play him that much, so bear with me on this. Enemies affected by Void Grip, again, that's the one where you lift them up and channel that damage into them for 2.5 seconds. This also cripples them and takes an additional 360 damage over its duration. So you're basically doubling the damage that it does, and you're crippling them. This is a great one if you're playing a very offensive Genos. By that I mean where you're chasing down enemies, or you're trying to keep them away from your team, or if your team is very pushy, this is something that you want to have. If you have a lot of flanks, or even a Victor, because Victors, in my opinion, tend to run around the map quite a bit with that hustle. The last one that you'll get is the Luminary. This is any ally that's affected by your single target heal, deals 15% more weapon damage. This is a damage buff for your team. This is not a bad one if you have a good team comp with one tank, 2 damage, and a flank. If you're trying to keep them alive, this will allow them to stay alive, because not only are you healing them with that little tick of 220 over 10 seconds, but you're also increasing their damage output so they can mow down enemies fairly quickly. Again, I don't play him that often. I'm not going to make too many recommendations as far as his talent, which one is the best. For me, it would be situational. I gotta play him more, really. Get a little bit more comfortable with him. But let's go ahead and build one here. I think that I would probably want one that's more reliant on the heals. So let's take a look at these then for your Astral Mark, which is again your single target heal. Relativity will apply Astral Mark heals for you. Applying an Astral Mark heals you for 40 health per second over 10 seconds. So you're getting a tick back as well. It's not very much, but it's a little bit. Let's take a look here. This increases the duration. That would be good. Increasing the range is also good on any healer. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the range a bit. I'm also going to reduce the cooldown on that. Let's see. Gonna get some lifesteal. And a reveal. Now let's just go ahead and put something in here for Void Grip as well. Go ahead and do that. If they die within 4 seconds, it cools down all active reduces all active cooldowns by 20%. So let's see which one here. I'm going to increase this lifesteal to 4, give me 20% lifesteal back, increase that range to 20, reduce the cooldown by 1.5, give it 2 seconds there, and then let's go ahead and increase that again, and increase that cooldown again there. Alright, so that would be my one that I would use if I was going more towards healing, not so much a damage output. If I'm going more for a damage output, what I'm going to want to do here is actually go more towards my Void Grip. So I'm going to reduce the reload speed, increase my ammo count. Go ahead and do this one here, which is if I put a Void Grip on them, it's going to reduce their healing by 15% for 3 seconds. I'm actually going to increase that a bit here. I'm going to give them a good chunk of reduced healing. Still going to use that one because I do like Falling Star. But you know, I'm going to go ahead and get a cooldown reduction as well. That is 10, increase that by 6. Now, as you see here, it took a massive cooldown reduction here for this one if they're killed within 4 seconds of being hit with Void Grip. What this will do is this will allow me to continuously be able to heal. If my team is able to take them out in a Void Grip, I'll be able to drop heals a lot quicker. Go ahead and do that. So that would be my 3 to start for Genos. Alright, I'm actually going to save Ying for last because she's my favorite. She's my main. Let's talk about Grover for a second here. Grover is a great, what I call a tank healer. His heal is primarily an AoE heal. It is around him, so you have to be standing near your allies. And the best way to do that, especially in a siege or an onslaught, is to be with the tank on the point. So let's talk about those abilities. And he does still do a decent amount of damage. Your auto attack is you throw your axe, which does 300 damage, and it does have a decent amount of range. The further away you are when you throw it, the more damage it does. And you don't need a card to be able to do that, or a talent. That's just a bonus damage that you get. Now, of course, that all depends. I mean, if you're standing with the tank on the point, you may not want to be throwing too far away because it may be right in front of you. But if it does happen, then you know you've got a good way to do it. Now, of course, Crippling Throw is another attack with your axe. And the way you can tell the difference, really, is the reticle will actually turn from being vertical to horizontal. Now, this one does do more damage. It doesn't give you a bonus damage for being further away and hitting with that, but it does do a crippling effect. So if you hit someone with it, it's got that cripple. It's a great thing to do. Now for your mobility with him, he has Vine. He throws out a vine and pulls himself to it. Now this will either pull yourself, you can use it on an enemy to pull yourself to an enemy, you can pull yourself to a wall, an ally, it all depends. You can pretty much pull yourself to anything, and it's on a decent cooldown, so you can get yourself out of some trouble if need be. Blossom is your passive heal. You do have to activate it, and it does stay on for pretty much the entire time of the cooldown. I think it's 9 or 10 seconds. The cooldown is 10, and it lasts about that long. So it's going to give them a hot or a heal over time, 80 health per second. And then when you initiate it, when you activate it, it does automatically, instantly heal for 900 health if they're nearby. This is great for a Leanne or Sky or anyone that's jumping around. If they're nearby, you pop it and then they can get out of range and keep going on about what they're doing, dealing that damage. His ultimate is a huge heal. This is a great one when you have those clutch moments, when you're in overtime, things like that. It does heal for 2,500 health per second for 5 seconds. This is a great way to continue pushing the payload or survive to be able to stop a payload. He is great for siege campaigns. Now, let's talk about the talents that he has. Starting with the one that you get immediately. This one is called Rampant Blooming. Now, this, of course, affects your Blossom. So healing an ally with Blossom will heal them for an additional 160 health per second for 4 seconds. So you're increasing that hot from 80 to 100 or 160 plus 80. Excuse me guys, I'm talking too much. So this is a great one to do if you are going to rely on healing, if you're trying to strictly do heals. Now, of course, these all, again, rely on your team comp. If you are able to take that, I do recommend it. But let's see, the second one that unlocks for you at level 2 is Ferocity. This increases your damage scaling over distance by 60%. So this is a great one if you feel that if you don't have a tank and you know that your team's going to be maybe behind in the start, may not be able to take the point right away. This is a great one for that, because the further away you are, the more damage you're going to do. And this is something that you can two-shot a Skye sometimes, just depending on how far away you are. So this is a great one for that type of a situation. The next one you'll get here, Efflorescence. This will increase your passive healing of Blossom by 100% and its radius by 50%. Again, not a bad one to do if you have possibly 2 tanks, just that way you can get them a bit more of a buff and a bit more on that hot. Of course, and this will also increase the radius again by 50%. That allows you to cover more of your team on that point. And the last one that opens up for you at level 12 is Deep Roots. This, of course, affects Crippling Throw. This will now root them for 1 second and bounces between enemies. So this is a great one if you know you're going to have to pin down enemies. If you have Maeve, Skye, Moji, Koga, any of the flanks. If they have multiple flanks, I would recommend this so you can not lock them down, so your team can take them out. This is great for that. Again, it's all situational depending on your team and the enemy team. Let's take a look at some loadout here now. Of course, the one that you start with is Lumbering Jack. Not bad, again, to start with. The ones that they give you generally are good to start with. But let's go ahead and build a couple here. So I'm going to go with Blossom as being my main. So this is going to be my main healing. If this is what I'm going to take, either 2 of the talents that increase Blossom, this is going to be the loadout that I will take. So let's see, we're going to reduce that cooldown. Get some radius increase as well as some damage reduction for myself. And then let's go ahead and take a look here. Go ahead and get that so I can't be slowed. And then I'm going to go ahead and get an elimination, reducing all active cooldowns. We're going to increase that up to 3. I'm going to increase Unstoppable so I can get 24% damage reduction. Increase this up to 30%, and we'll take this up to 1.5. And Force of Nature, I'm only going to do the 2 because I really don't think it needs to be much higher. 70% of my base movement speed is still okay. I mean, he is rather slow, but it's still okay to get around, especially with Vine. So let's go ahead and make one that's more damage based. So this one's going to rely more on Crippling Throw. Let's go ahead and get a self heal for hitting an enemy with it. As well, and I just took that it increases my movement speed if I hit someone with it. Let's go ahead and get a cooldown reduction relay on that as well. Let's increase my maximum health, and you know what? Let's get a straight cooldown reduction for Crippling Throw. I'm going to increase that to the most. Chop down's going to be my highest. go ahead and increase this. Get a little bit more health back for that. I'm fine with that only being reduced by 1 second. I don't rely too much on Vine, but that's a nice buff. And we'll increase that to give me a little bit more health. So I do recommend if you're going to go more damage dealing, to go ahead and get whatever the card may be for that champion to increase your base health. As much as you can do with the setup that you have. Now the reason I do that is because I'm not taking anything to increase my healing output. Alright, so that's Grover for you. I do like Grover, he is fun to play. Let's take a look here. Next one we've got is Meldama. Meldama is interesting. He's a bit hard to catch sometimes if you play him right. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at those abilities here. So his auto attack, as you can see from the overview, he doesn't really have a gun or a sword or anything like that. Just this little pet snake, right? Oh, what's that gonna do? Well, that's his auto attack. The snake actually attacks. He's a spitting cobra. And when your reload would be, he shoots out a poison. So that does damage over time, if you can hit them. And it also stuns enemies for 1 second. Now, Mending Spirit is your single target heal. And that will be a 280 instant or hot for 5 seconds. This is 280 health every second for 5 seconds. It's a good single target heal. Get a good amount there back. Slither is your movement buff. So what this does is you actually become untargetable and you move forward. You can't move backwards, or you can kind of move sideways a little bit within it, but it's always in the forward direction. And so this is a great way to get behind an enemy and to, especially if they're low, take them out. Now Gourd is a heal. It's an AoE heal. So you throw a gourd on the ground, it heals your allies, but it also damages your enemies. So this is a great way to stop an enemy from chasing you, or to save an ally who's got an enemy on top of them, because it's going to heal your ally and damage that enemy at the same time, which I find exceptionally useful. And then of course his ultimate. This is a large area ultimate. It's one of the ones you got to be careful about how you throw it. He summons like a giant snake, serpent, ghost-looking thing, but it fears enemies away for 2 seconds. This is a good way to get them off the payload if they're pushing it into your base. Good way to get that defense successful if you're in overtime or in onslaught, to be able to push them out off that payload so you guys can get a little bit more time on it. This also allows you to be able to heal your team back up so they can go back into that battle. Now, with his talents, the one you start off with is Spirit's Chosen. This affects your Mending Spirit, your single target heal. This allows you to heal for an additional 300 up front. So it's not a continuous hot like the basic Mending Spirit, but it does increase that initial heal from 280 to 580, which is not bad, especially if you have a squishy champion on your team. This will allow you to give them a bit more of a fighting chance. Now, level 2 will unlock Ripened Gourd, which affects your AoE heal and damage. So it has a 50% chance to not go on cooldown. This is one that I use quite often, just because Gourd is a great offensive and defensive move. So this one here will allow you to throw it multiple times, soak the ground in healing or damage depending. Just great. And now the next one that opens up for you here at level 8 actually affects your Snake Toss, which is going to be your regular auto attack. but it's faster and deals an additional 500 damage. So this makes him pretty good with the offensive, or to do that damage for, again, if you don't have a tank and you have to be able to put out some damage to keep your team up and going, this is a great one to use. The last one that opens up for you here at level 12 affects your Mending Spirit again. Now this may be cast on enemies to deal 560 damage over 2 seconds. Again, not a bad one to have if your team doesn't have a tank and you have to be a little bit more offensive and have a bit more of that damage output. So let's go ahead and take a look at some loadouts here. Let's go ahead and build one that's strictly healing. So we're going to rely on Gourd and Mending Spirit. Again, I personally rely more on Gourd. You may rely more on Mending Spirits. You may build this a little bit different, but I do like to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and take a reduced healing for enemies that are hit by it. Hitting them will reveal them. And I'm not such a huge fan of lighter Gourd, just because it's usually a short distance for me. I play pretty close to the team when I play him, so I don't really need that. So I'm going to go ahead and take the cooldown reduction on it. And with this being said, I'm going to go ahead and get my own buff for healing, for self-healing. Let's take a look at Mending Spirit here. I'm going to go ahead and take this damage reduction when I'm healing an ally with Mending Spirits. That helps when the enemy team sees that you're healing. They're going to go ahead and, if they're smart, try and take you down. So that will help with that. I'm actually going to make that my big one. Its possession. Alright, so let's go with a more offensive. So if you have to play offensively, let's go ahead and get a reduction on all cooldowns. And then let's see, we're going to go ahead and take this reduced healing again. Again, this one's going to rely a bit on Gourd, just because it does do damage as well as healing. Go ahead and take a Slither heal. So it's self-heal for me. Just because I want that movement speed buff, I'm going to go ahead and take this reduced cooldown, because I'm going to be jumping around. If I'm being more offensive, I'm probably going to be relying on Slither a bit more. I'm still going to make my overall heal. And we're just going to take this. Actually, I'm going to make this a 3. So this is what I would use if I was going offensive. Go ahead and save and exit out of that. Again, Maldama is a very fun champion to play. Takes a little getting used to, especially with his Slither. As long as you remember that it only moves forward, you'll be okay. Just remember to turn around if you need to run, and then Slither. Done that a few times and gotten caught. Alright, so let's take a look at Pip here. Pip is an interesting pocket healer. So with his abilities, his auto attack will launch potions that explode on impact, dealing 600 damage per hit. So he does have a good punch for a healer. His explosive flask here does 150 damage and slows the enemy by 50%. Now this is a good way to lock down an enemy so your team can take them out, or so you can take them out, depending on how it goes. Weightless is your movement ability. This allows you to jump in the air much higher, allowing you to jump around enemies and be able to hit them to do more damage, as well as dodge those enemy attacks. And then of course your heal is your healing potion. Now this will, you throw it, and it heals an enemy for 1200 health. Heals all teammates for 1200 health when it explodes. Now reactivating the ability will instantly cause healing potion to explode. Alright, and then his ultimate is fun. If you ever want to see some interesting little chickens run around, play him. His ultimate, what it does is you throw out a flask that does 200 damage, but it turns all enemies that are within that area to chickens with 1500 health. So it doesn't matter if it's a con with 3400 health, you will instantly have 1500. This allows you to take down tanks very quickly, to be able to melt them down. This is very effective for that, very good for point control, but you do want to be careful again with how you aim it, and you can get caught in it. Now, of course, the enemies still have mobility. When they are chicken, they can run around, they can dodge, they just can't attack. So they can pop back up with some of their health if you were able to hit them. It does do damage and then scales depending on what their damage or their health was or is when they're returned to their regular form. Now, as far as his talents, what you get immediately is Mega Potion. What this does is it actually increases your healing potion. It heals allies for 100% more. This again is great, especially if you have a dual tank situation, or if you know that your team is going to be very much stuck together on a point. Onslaught, this is great for. Your next one that you get at level 2 is Mischief. When you hit an enemy with your potion launcher or your auto attack, it reduces the cooldown of all other skills by 1%. So this is a great one if you have to be a little bit more offensive. Not necessarily if you don't have a tank at all, it's great for that as well, but you can use this if you have a tank just to be a little bit more offensive and to push them away. The next one that you get is Combat Medic at level 8. Now this allows your potion launcher to also heal allies. So this is a great situational one. So this just gives you a secondary heal. And then of course your last talent that opens up at level 12 is Catalyst. So with this targets hit with Explosive Flask are marked for 3 seconds and take 40% increased damage from your weapon shot. So this is great to have or to use if you do not have a tank of any kind. This will allow you to be a bit more offensive, allows you to chase them down and mow them down. So that's a great one to have situational. Let's take a look at the loadouts here. Let's go ahead and create one for healing. So I'm going to rely on Healing Potion here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in case I'm not standing in it when I hit them with it. I'll still get 20% returned in healing. I'm going to increase that radius. And we're going to go ahead and get that cooldown reduction as well. And I always recommend to take Sturdy with him. Normally your auto attacks and your abilities will have a bit of a recoil to them, so they knock you back a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and take that, so we'll take less damage and less knockback. Alright, and the last one I'm going to take here is actually going to be this one here, so I can heal myself a little bit more. So when I can receive 10% increased healing when below 50% health, I'm actually going to increase that to 20% healing. Go ahead and save that. And now for a more offensive loadout here, I'm going to go ahead and take some lifesteal. Get some ammo back, as well as a cooldown reduction. little reload, increase, and starting again. We're just going to do increase that to 3, reduce that cooldown by 1.5. I'm actually going to increase this lifesteal as much as I can there, and then this one here just to give me a little bit of that ammo back. So that's how I would build Pip. Again, it's all situational and how you play him, but definitely a good little pocket healer. Alright, next we've got Saris. Now, Saris is probably my second favorite healer, just because of her. She's a bit more difficult to play, I will say that. You do have to rely a bit more on your attacks to be able to heal yourself, and you'll understand what I mean here in just a second. So your auto attack is you shoot out these orbs of magical power, however you want to say it, but they're these orbs and you hit enemies with them. It doesn't do a ton of damage, but they do stack, and you do want to let them stack. The more enemies you can hit with them and be able to stack that up, the better. Now, Restore Soul is your single target heal. This will heal them for 1,000 health over 2 seconds. And her heal is quite good. The only bad thing about her heal is that you do not heal yourself. There's no way to heal yourself with her regular heal. Now, the only way to heal yourself is she has a built-in lifesteal. So every time you stack an auto attack on an enemy, once you get up to that 4 stack, or when you feel comfortable to be able to do this, you would just go ahead and hit your Rend Soul. What this does is it actually damages that enemy and heals you for that 15% of your maximum health. So this is the only way you can heal yourself with her. So you got to be very good about balancing your heals and your auto attacks. Now, her movement buff, what she'll do is she actually basically drops into another dimension. She goes into a stealth. She is immune to harmful effects during this. With that being said, you do also get a movement speed buff. And it's a good way if your entire team is down and you have to push the payload. You can go into stealth and just stand by the payload, at least until you come out and then you're dead. But it is relatively useful, especially getting out of bad situations. The only downside to it is you cannot attack or heal while you're in it. If you try to attack, you will come out of your shadow travel. So this is really useful if you're low. Drop into shadow travel, run around for a bit, and that allows that time to come off into your auto heal to come back in, which every champion has. If you're not doing damage for a certain amount of time, you'll start to heal. Now, with that being said, if you're standing around watching your team die, I usually will come out of shadow travel and drop a Restore Soul to try and keep my team going. If I die, too bad, but if the tank's still up, I can usually get back as long as I drop a heal on it. Now, your ultimate is quite interesting. It doesn't do any damage. That's the big thing to remember with her ult. It does not do damage, but what you do is she throws out her, basically the ball that you see here. She'll throw out a projectile like that, and it drags all enemies within a certain radius to that center. Now, while that's happening, you just continue to auto attack, stack up your soul orbs on them, and then pop your Rend Soul. Hopefully your team will jump on anyone who's pulled in as well, but you have to be careful because it can also be quite dangerous, especially if you're the last one there, or if you don't get the whole team and leave someone who can jump around and get to you. So just gotta be careful about that. It is a good defensive ult as well. You can pull them off of the payload to get that overtime defense successful. It's good for Onslaught to be able to pull them off the point yet again. A team deathmatch is just pretty much anything goes, so you just gotta be careful where you throw it, try and get everybody. Now, as far as her talents. Now, I will tell you which one is my favorite when we get to it here. The first one that you get is Soul Collector. What this does is every time you use your soul charge or your soul orb, every soul charge you detonate with your Ren Soul. So every time you detonate those, your base health and weapon damage, you increase that by 2% until you die. Now this will stack up to 15 times. So this is a good way to build that up. Now if you do this very well, you can actually go with 0 deaths in a game, because that will just build up your health, especially if you use a loadout that increases your base health to start with. So that's a very good one if you know that it's multiple tanks on the other team or high damage output from the other team. This may be a good one to use for that, just so that you can stack up that health relatively quickly, as long as you can get those soul charges off. Now the next one you get, which is at level 2, which this is actually my favorite one to use with her. What this does is actually makes your Restore Soul single target heal into an AoE heal. What it does is it heals all allies within 50 feet of your target with Restore Soul, 50% of the healing value. So they get a little bit less healing, but it's something that you can pop more often and you don't have to worry as much, because if you're just relying on Restore Soul, that's a single target heal. So you would have to wait that 4 seconds to be able to give them that 1,000 health, and sometimes you just don't have it. So having this can save a lot of allies, and it has for me, which is why I rely on it quite heavily, and it is the one that I usually take. Again, situational. The next one you get, which is at level 8, is called Agony. Now this also applies to Ren Soul. So this also applies 1.5 stun now when they're afflicted with 4 soul charges. So when you get a stack of 4 of your soul orbs on them, what's going to happen is they're going to get stunned. Now this can be useful if you know you're going to have to lock people down. Again, situational. If you know that they have 3 flanks on their team or high damage output with a sniper, might be good to take Agony. And in that case, if there was a sniper, drop into Shadow Travel, go track them down, and then stack that on them, and there you go. The last one you get at level 12 is Mortal Reach. Now this increases your Restore Soul range by 300% and the duration by 1%. So this is good if you know that you're going to have people running around. That Void Abide may not be able to keep them healed up, just because they may not be within 50 feet of your original target. They may be well off in the front, chasing down enemies. This will allow you to be able to heal them more effectively. Let's go ahead and take a look at some loadout here. So we're going to go ahead and do one that's for heals. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to take a look at the ones for Restore Soul, so for your healing. Go ahead and get a reduced cooldown on that. And I'm going to go ahead and get Blood Pact as well here, which while channeling it, I'm actually healing myself. So that's really good, so you don't have to rely as much on Ren Soul. And I'm going to go ahead and take Bane as well, just because every time I detonate those soul charges, it's going to reduce that cooldown for my Restore Soul, so I'll be able to keep the team healed up much better. And we're going to go ahead and take Wickedness and Essence Rip. So with this, as you see, I didn't increase my base health very much, but I did go ahead and give myself some self-healing when I'm healing others, which I'm going to increase quite a bit here. Get some cooldown reduction on a few things. And this one here increases my life steal. So that would be the one that I would use for mainly healing, where I'm not so much offensive. Now, if it's something where I'm going to be relying more on having to be out front or to be chasing people down, I'm going to go ahead and take Dark Whisper, So this allows me, when I drop into shadow travel, to be able to move a lot quicker. I'm actually going to increase that up to 60%, so I can either get away from enemies a lot quicker or chase them down. I'm going to go ahead and take a heal while I'm in stealth. Go ahead and reduce that cast time because you can get caught if you don't have that. Trying to do her cast, which basically moves her orb in front of her. You can be sniped or anything else. And it's happened a few times to me. It is not fun. Alright, so with that also being said, I'm going to go ahead and take Essence Rip again. And I'm going to increase my base health here. So with this setup here, I would be taking the ability more likely here. That would be Soul Collector. So in my base health is already starting up higher than normal, and I'll be able to stack that, chase them down as much as possible. Again, Saris is one of my favorites. I said probably my second favorite healer, and she is kind of expensive, but she is a lot of fun to play. Let's go ahead here and go back. And the next healer we've got here is, of course, my favorite, Ying. I wasn't a huge fan of her when I first started playing, but now she is my main, and there is a very good reason for it. Let me explain this for you. So your auto attack is just a straight shot fire. It doesn't do a ton of damage. It deals 5 ticks of 90 damage over 0.2 seconds every 0.5 seconds. So you're not firing too rapidly, but you can do, it's a good enough amount to be able to do a decent amount of damage to pull off team enemies off of your teammates. Now, Shatter is relating to illusions. Now let's talk about illusions first here. What this does is you'll drop an illusion of yourself. This is going to be your heal. It is kind of an AoE heal. It's going to heal nearby allies for up to 420 every second, as long as they're within range. And you can drop 2 of these at a time. It's on a 5-second cooldown, so it's not too bad. Now, the reason this is important, and you want to try and stay on top of your illusions and where they are and place them strategically, is because with Shatter, what that does is it activates your illusions, causing them to chase down enemies and explode for 500 damage. This is great if you have a good group of them all together. It'll just run right into the middle of them, and then you've got 2 illusions. They were nearby doing 500 damage. You just did 1,000 damage to everyone within that group. It's not a single target damage. It's anyone within a range of the explosion. Now, Dimensional Link, this also relies on your illusions. What this does is it allows you to swap locations with the furthest illusion away from you, and if none are deployed, Ying will take the location of the last active illusion. So this is a good way to confuse the enemy and get out of dangerous situations, or to be able to get behind an enemy and take them out. It's great for a lot of things, and you can jump more than 1 time while it's active. I've been able to jump up to 4 times. It's active for 4 seconds, but it is on a 14-second cooldown, so you want to be careful about how you use it. Her ultimate is a cross-the-map full team heal. This heals them for 600 health per second for 8 seconds, so this is great, especially if you're watching your teammates' health bars up in the corner, and you're coming back into the game and they're across the map. This will allow them to be able to continue going until you get there. It's great as well for being able to manhandle or to stronghold that point. I really rely on it quite a bit, and if you're dropping illusions relatively pretty much every time they're up, then you're going to get your ultimate fairly quickly as it charges. Now let's talk about the talents. As you can see, I've already got them all unlocked for her, but if I've got 2 of them unlocked. I've got them all unlocked on the Xbox. The first one you start with is lifelike, or focusing lens, sorry. Now this allows you to do an extra 150 damage if you hit all 5 of your auto attacks on the same target. So this is a great ability to take if you know you're going to need to be able to take down enemies. If there's going to be people jumping on you, or they have dual tanks, something like that, you may need to take this to be able to do that little bit of extra damage. Now the second one you get is lifelike, in which illusions can now target 2 allies when healing, but illusions heal for 20% less. So this is not a bad healing buff. This allows you, of course, to be able to, again, heal multiple targets at once. But the thing about her illusions is when you drop them as far as the healing, it's not one heal and then done. It's not just going to heal one ally and then just sit there. It'll heal them every few seconds as they go by. But again, it's on a 5-second cooldown, so it's not something that I rely on too much as lifelike. But the next one you get is Life Exchange. Now what this does is it actually affects your Shatter. So this now instantly heals your target for 800 health, but no longer explodes illusions, and the cooldown is increased by 1 second. Now I don't ever actually use this ability. It doesn't actually suit any of my playstyles with her, but if you're looking for a little extra healing, it may be something you want to try. And with the last one, which is the one that I use pretty much in every game, is Resonance. So what this does is you pretty much just cancel out Shatter. You don't have to rely on it anymore unless you really need to, unless the other team realizes what's going on. What this does is if the enemy kills or if the illusion expires, which they always do, it's going to do damage to them. So even if they're not attacking it, but it's on the point, once it goes to die, it's going to do some damage to them. So it's going to basically trigger Shatter. It just explodes for that 500 damage. So this way, not only am I having a good healing output, but I've also got a good damage output. And if you've seen some of my games, I've had games where I've had over or close to 100,000 in healing with almost as much damage. And that's not even with me having to really do much. That's just relying on Resonance and the enemy team being in a specific place at a specific time. Again, really great for Onslaught and Siege to be able to stack up that. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the abilities, loadouts. Now with her, the loadout that I use is generally something like this. This is the one I've been using on PC with her. What this includes is Spring Bloom, which when an illusion dies to an enemy, it reduces the cooldown of illusion by 1.5. So if they take out my illusion, I'm going to get that cooldown reduction. This increases my health here, so I've actually got that to be my highest, so it's increasing my base health by 200. And with her, I always recommend getting an elimination, reducing all active cooldowns card, just because you're going to get those eliminations with her, so why not capitalize on it? I do like having the movement speed when out of combat. This allows me to catch up with my team a lot quicker, as well as to be able to get away from enemies. If I'm able to get behind a wall for a few seconds, I'll be able to move a lot quicker. And then Harmony, which is another good one. So anytime I do push or have to hit Shatter, it's going to heal me for the percentage of damage dealt. Let's go ahead and make a new one here. Another one that I like to do, if I'm relying more on Resonance and not so much on Shatter, which like I said is what I usually do, I'm going to go ahead and let's see, I'm going to go ahead and take Spring Bloom again. And I don't really want to increase the health of them too much, because if an enemy takes them out, they've already done their initial healing when they're dropped. So if an enemy takes them out, I want them to be able to take them out relatively quickly to go ahead and get that extra damage on them. I'm going to go ahead and get a reduce on my dimensional link for the cooldown, just because I do jump around quite a bit with her. I do like rewind, so swapping the spot with a dead illusion spawns an illusion with 20% health. This is really good, again, with Resonance. Yeah, I'm actually going to go ahead and increase that. And take encouragement so that my eliminations will give me some cooldown reduction as well. Again, pretty even across the board with this loadout, but I do like it. So yeah, that's pretty much a breakdown of average healer anyways for you. Oh, no, I missed one. Brark. I hope I'm saying that right. So he's very interesting. Think a druid. Or a shaman, if you like, if you've played WoW. So his auto attack is through his lightning staff, and it's more of a timed channeling. His reload can be kind of annoying, but if you just let off of it, it'll cool. Like, think about it as overheating. When it overheats, it'll stop until it's cooled down. So if you're not constantly firing with him, you can kind of avoid that cooldown period. So that's phenomenal if you time it correctly. But he doesn't do a ton of damage with it. It's 75 damage per hit every second, or every 0.1 second. He deals up to 30% more damage the longer you are on that target. So he can do a bit of a tick on someone. Be a little bit of annoying. His shock pulse, which is a projectile that he fires out, does 150 damage and bounces between enemy players. Again, a great thing if they're all bunched up together, you can do a decent amount of damage on them. Ghostwalk is your movement buff. You become untargetable and you gain 20% movement speed for 1 second, and it removes all of the debuffs on you. So any cripples or any CC that may be there, that's gone. Now, Healing Totem is his heal. It's an AoE heal. It's not around him. He drops a totem. You can either stand in it, you can walk away, however you want to do it. Generally, you want to throw that down, of course, near your allies. But it is on a relatively long cooldown. It's a 15-second cooldown, so it's a heal that you got to be very careful with. But it does heal for 1,000 health. I'm sorry. It got 1,000 health on the totem, and up to 100 feet away, it heals the nearby allies for 420 health every second and lasts for 6 seconds. So as long as they don't shoot it for that 1,000 health, it's going to do a decent amount of healing if your allies are standing in it. Now, your ultimate is very interesting with him. It's an offensive and defensive ultimate. So great if you know that you're going to have to be jumping into team fights. You get movement speed with it. It does damage to the enemy and heals your allies as well. So it's a great ultimate to use. Again, one you've got to be kind of careful with, but is wonderful if you get it right. Let's go ahead and talk about those abilities here, or those talents. The first one you get is Wraith. So when you take lethal damage, Ghostwalk activates and heals you 15% of your maximum health. So this is something if you know that you're going to possibly be picked off, if the enemy team might be, have some people with invis, like Sky, you may want to take this just in case, because that will allow you to drop all those debuffs and be able to get away a bit quicker, maybe drop a totem pole or a healing totem. So the next one that opens up for you at level 2 is Spirit's Domain. This actually now makes your lightning staff or your auto attack to be able to heal allies. This gives you a little extra healing, so you don't have to rely on Healing Totem. This is something I would use, just because Healing Totem is great, but it does have a relatively long cooldown. The next one that opens up for you at level 8 is Maelstrom. This allows that your weapon shots reduce the cooldown of Shock Pulse. So anytime you're hitting someone with Lightning Staff, you're reducing that Shock Pulse by 0.5 seconds, and Shock Pulse bounces 4 more times. So this is great if you know that you're going to be able to be offensive. If you have 2 healers on your team, you don't have to worry as much about healing, and you can play a little bit more in their face if you like. This would be great for that. The last one that opens up for you at level 12 is Totemic Ward. Now what this does is it allows allies healed by Healing Totem to receive CC immunity for 2 seconds, and Healing Totem heals 40% more. So you get a buff in how much healing that puts out, and it also gives them that CC immunity. A great one to take if you're going up against an Inara, just because she has that cripple that she can drop if she has the right build. But this is a wonderful talent to take situationally. Again, I would say between this one and Spirit's Domain would probably be the ones that I would take the most. Maelstrom and Wraith, just depending on the team. So let's go ahead and take a look here based on healing. Let's look at the armor and weapon ones first. So again, if you're balancing that overdrive, you shouldn't have to need electrostatic. If you find that you're having problems being able to balance that, I would take this, just so that way you're able to get back up and shooting a lot quicker. I'm going to go ahead and take a health shield. And let's go ahead and take a look at the healing totem here. I'm going to go ahead and take Healing Rain. What this does is it actually heals them for a percentage of their maximum health per second if they're within the radius of the totem. I'm going to go ahead and increase that area as well. Now I'm also going to get a little bit more damage out here. I'm going to increase that bounce range. And I'm going to take Gale here and reduce that long cooldown on the totem. So I'm actually going to reduce that by 5 seconds. So now it's a 10-second cooldown if I use Ghost Walk, which is fantastic. There we go. Alright, so more of a damage output style. So again, we're going to take Arc Lightning, and I'm going to take Conduit, which gives you a movement speed buff if you hit an enemy with Shock Pulse. And then just to be annoying, I'm going to take Phantom to increase my Ghost Walk duration. I'm going to increase my base health. And I'm actually going to take Totemic Rescue again. Now, of course, this one it's one of the rare cards that has a cooldown on it, so it's not every time you drop below 30% unless it's outside of that cooldown period. So you have to be very careful with that. Again, why I only put so much into it is because I'm not going to be relying on it heavily. And there we go. Alright, so that is officially now all of the healers currently and Paladins covered for you. Now, of course, if you have any questions or if you have any input, if you play someone different, I am very open to learning how you build and how you play them, try out new styles. Not saying that all of my styles are correct, but these are the builds and the ones that talents that I use the most. Just trying to get it out there for everybody and give a nice introduction to the game, because the game is a lot of fun to play. Now, if you are tuning in, I do want to thank you for hanging out. Also, feel free to check back in here in, I would say, maybe 20 or 30 minutes. I'll hop on the Xbox and I'll actually be playing some of these guys for you, give you a window into how that play style works. Again, thanks for tuning in and hope to see you in the round.